speaker, Bernie. I'm so honoured to have the job of introducing Bernie. Because of Bernie, we have the Barefoot Sanctuary here in North Berwick because of her vision, and I'm so grateful for this place. Bernie has helped me so much personally and in business. Both my husband and I have had coaching from Bernie for about a year, which just completely kick-started so much growth for us, and also as a friend, a dear friend. I'm so looking forward to tonight's talk to see what's going to happen and what's going to unfold, because I was just thinking I can meet Bernie on the street and have a 10-minute chat, and then I have like a new vision or a new perspective on something, or like a list of books to read, and so I'm so excited about tonight's talk, and it's with huge love and joy that I would love to welcome Bernie Petrie.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Ailey. Where are you? There you are. I mean, I remember the first moment I met Ailey, and it is so, for me right now, the whole essence of tonight's talk, Follow Your Yellow Brick Road, it has been having people like Ailey in my life, and sort of starting to really have conversations with people that are very deep and meaningful. So it's wonderful, and it is so great to have you all here. Thank you. It's a female audience. We have Cami here on camera, our honorary man tonight, and I had a real sense that it was going to be a female audience. This is like October. This is the witchy month. So if you're in this room, could you please just take this as a compliment? You're a wonderful natural witch. And, and you know, I only put the booty call out to people that would actually hear this witch call. The whole concept of following your own yellow brick road, the talk was actually going to be called I Fought the Law and the Law Won. And then it was like, no, it's called Follow Your Own Yellow Brick Road. And I was like, okay, I thought it was a joke, okay, you know, it's like, you know, it's kind of funny. And of course, the essence is I did try to fight the law, but I am my own law, and I did ultimately win. So, and I still fight her constantly. I'm going to really work very hard tonight to allow her to speak, rather than my story to speak. So how tonight is going to go is that I will share with you parts of my story. I've got a couple of stories that I want to share, but the intention of tonight is that we all tap in and spend time in that wonderful energy of our heart's desires. You know, Dorothy clicked the heels 3 times. That's what took her home. And that is what the core desire message really is. You know, following your yellow brick road is actually a verb. It's a verb. It's a doing thing. And there isn't just one. I don't believe there's one. There are so many. So when I was thinking about the stories that I wanted to talk to you about, I just realised that it wasn't a story. It's a thread that runs through my story. And it's a thread of all of the things in my life, and I was looking for this one thread that's been so true in my life, and I firmly believe that each and every one of us have a very strong thread that has come when we've come onto this earth, that we haven't forgotten that we are of divinity, that we are a child of the universe, whatever you want to call it, that we are it. You know, we are the creator, we're the everything. And the one area that I woke up at 3 o'clock in the other night, and I could hear Dave kind of waking up but pretending he wasn't awake, because he was thinking, oh, what is it now? and it was just like, I think I found my thread. And he was like, okay. Do I want to hear what your thread is? And I said, well, it is connected with men, and it is connected with you. And so as a way to explain what I want to try and do by sharing this with you is to explain that this thread of that has run very strongly through my life has been the way that I'm trying to learn to use the same deference in all the areas of my life, and I am by no means accomplished in lots of areas in my life. When you become a life coach, it's one of the things that they teach you. I'm looking here for a board, there isn't a board. When you become a life coach, one of the first things that they talk about was this circle of life. Have you ever heard of that, the circle of life? And in that circle of life, you've got to give yourself marks out of 10 for all the different things. And there's an area in your life that is just that congram on that thread. So I realised that my sex life was my thread. I never said it out loud. My sex life was my thread. Because one of the things that I realised that will help me get my point across to people is if I talk about the thing that I'm embarrassed about. And the thing that I've always been embarrassed about in my life is that I've only had sex with one man. And that has been something that I can feel it now. She's like, oh my God, you've said that out loud. You're 47, you've only had sex with one man. You're going, what? Are you crazy? That was my constant. And I reckon that I didn't have the karma. That wasn't my issue on this life. That wasn't the thing that I needed to work through. There was plenty other for me to work through. But in my sex life and in my physical relationships, it was as clear to me from the very young age that if I like someone physically, it's probably like the, dog's like, oh no, I don't read. So for me, I couldn't go out with someone, even on a date, for a second date, if I didn't feel that. I just couldn't. It'd be like, I'll be sick. I just can't. So this constant thread of physicality, of trusting this kind of absolute yes, no, I know, led me to snog many men, but only sleep with one. And not because I'm a purist and I think that you shouldn't have sex with more than one man. It just didn't happen. It couldn't happen. It was as if she was like, no way, it's not happening. She was the conduit. She is the one. It's like, she's in charge. I have no say in it. And also the thread is that it was the one area, if I look back, it was the one area in my life that I never, ever, ever felt in danger. I have been in bed with men and I've never felt in danger. I have never had to push someone off or in that frightened. It has never, ever happened to me because this deep, deep, deep thing was protecting me. Now, if you take that essence and you think of one area of your life where you have felt incredibly safe, incredibly held, and you've just known with every single fibre in your body that is where you're meant to be, that is what you're meant to do, that is what it is, that, I believe, is the thread of following your yellow brick road. And if we can learn to apply that same knowing in our business life, in our health, in our career, all of those things, then that is us, we're in that dance. Because the whole essence of following your yellow brick road is that there's one for every single aspect of your life, and it is, you have to sort of be able to jump into it, and you start to learn to apply that feeling. Now, whilst I was very good at knowing what I wanted, I wasn't very good at necessarily accepting that other people didn't want me. So whilst I only slept with one person and had snogged many, I found rejection incredibly painful. And I would fall deeply in love very easily. So this thread that came to me the other night, I said, oh my gosh, I've just realised that I had been taught at the age of 20 the very language that I needed to use now in every single aspect of my life. Because in this conversation that I had with this young man, I listened with every single fibre in my being. And because I was, my soul heard it. And these are the words that he said to me. Now, to paint the story, I'm at college, I see this guy, I fall in love instantly in the library. I go there constantly. The education that I have has been in falling in love and understanding that. I've got like a first class degree now. So I pursued him with the law of attraction superbness for a year and a half. And I manifested that he would ask me out. And he did. And this is a guy I saw who in my view, was God. He was the hottest guy in the whole of, I just saw him and my heart went boom. And he was everything. I used to talk to my now husband about him all the time. All the time. And I just fell head over heels in love with him. But I was in love with the idea of him. I was in love with the idea of him. I never actually had the experience of being in his physicality to know. And then our first date, we go out with another group of friends, and we go out, and it just wasn't that magical. It wasn't that magical. He was so, in my mind it was going to be so different, but it wasn't magical. And do you know what was going on in my mind? I am now 20, and this could lead to, us having sex, and I have fancied him for a year and a half, and I have pursued him for ages, and this is clearly meant to be. But we came home that night, and I said to him, I want to be with you, but I don't want to be with you, if you know what I mean. Go.
Yeah.
And it was like, why did I even have to say that? Because already my vagina was saying, it's a no. It's a no. And he was gorgeous. He was gorgeous, and he was a good kisser, but it was not happening. So the next day, he stayed over, nothing happened. It was the most, no physicality whatsoever. And of course I knew in my heart, this is clearly not right. How can you fancy someone for a year and a half and, not even have to kind of cool it? But I didn't want to know. I didn't want him not to be the one. I didn't want him to reject me. And he came to me 2 nights later, and in the most gorgeous way he said to me, and I didn't hear it properly until 2 nights ago, he said, Bernie, it's sort of 99% right, but there's just that 1%. And it just doesn't feel it. And I heard it in my body, and I was devastated, but I was still devastated. But do you know what? I didn't shut my heart to him. I loved him, and I love him dearly. And I went on to become his friend. I got to have the relationship that I wanted as a heart-loving relationship. We didn't need to have a physical one. And when I would tell people that, they would say to me, oh yeah, you were 99% right. What kind of guy wants to somebody what is that? But I thought, oh my God, he was giving me the most wonderful way to be able to just end something without burning bridges. Because the way that I have gone through all the other parts of my life, which has not been a comfortable ride on my yellow brick road, is I've burnt bridges. Because I would get to a situation, like for example in my work career, shocking. I would get a job, and within maybe a day or two of being in a job, I would be like, how do I get out of this? And I would stay there for a year. I would stay there for years. And it was like, why can I bear this suffering in my job, but I can't bear it in my physicality? And I just really start to get curious about this. And I think that's the whole thing about it, is when we start to understand and when we start to get really clear that we are the law, we are the dance, we are the yellow brick road. And all we have to do is figure out how we can end things so that we don't burn bridges, and how we can also then make sure that we just navigate more easily. So that situation of that word that he said to me, I'm 99% right, it just doesn't feel right, sums up the absolute, that is someone working with the law of attraction beautifully. He's honouring how he feels. He was honouring his heart. He was honouring, he was in flow, completely in flow, creating the life that he wanted. Now there will be other parts of that person's life that maybe he wasn't, but in his personal physical relationships, he was spot on. So does that make sense? Can anyone relate to one area of your life where it's just been, you kind of, I think I was thinking about it earlier, I made a lot of mistakes in my love life. I fell and I kept falling and falling and falling in love. In the way that a top skier was prepared to fall and fall and fall and fall and fall until they became a brilliant skier. And so in my ability to be a human being, in a sexual human being, that is why I can do energy coaching, because I can feel it with every single fibre in my being. Now, it has been the practice of trying to use that language has been very difficult for me, because going back to with Dorothy, when you think about her, the Yellow Brick Road, we all carry within us deep wounds. We're human beings, and we have carried from our ancestors their stuff, just there, and we've a whole line of incredibly strong women behind us, and amazing strong women behind us. But they weren't perfect. But they were brave and they kept showing up. But we will have carried through some of their stuff, and we will have childhood things. And for me, in a professional situation, the reason that I found it very difficult to quit a job and therefore felt trapped, I felt trapped in the way that Dorothy felt completely trapped, was because I had this sense of terror if I would let someone down, absolute terror. And I just didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe. I seemed to, every time if I quit something, if I said, walked away from a best friend, it's almost like anything with a kind of contract of working relationship, it would blow up in my face. I would leave a job, it would blow up in my face. I would never speak to the boss again. I would resign, or I was going to the competition, or I would have to have a business flaw, all of that. I had to burn those bridges because I didn't have the language and the way of just being able to say, do you know what, this doesn't feel right. I'm just going to step back. Because it was that sparkly thing. It was something that I thought that I wanted. And going back to that guy at college, I thought he was the one, because if he loved me, that would mean I was whole and complete. That would mean I would be worthy. Because if he loved me, surely I'm worthy. And the sort of destruction that I experienced internally, thinking, well, because he's rejected me, I am therefore not lovable. And that is an old track that we have too. But I am so grateful, so grateful for that experience, and realizing that thread of, it just doesn't feel right. If something feels off in your life, there's a very good reason. And we don't actually have to put up with it. But we have to maybe look at where we find it easier to get ourselves, to not protect ourselves, but to sort of take our time. It's not the race, to take it step by step. When you think about Dorothy on her Yellow Brick Road, she goes off and she's like, oh, Yellow Brick Road, okay, and she gathers these people, and there's this real enthusiasm, they're really excited at some points, but then they kind of all get a bit manic. They all kind of start to get a bit hysterical, because they're like, the lion wants courage, but he wants courage. And the Tin Man, what he wants a heart. And the Scarecrow wanted intelligence, isn't that right? He wanted to know stuff, and she wanted to go home, and she wanted to feel whole. And that has been one of my biggest weaknesses. I just wanted to know stuff. I just wanted to know it. But I wasn't prepared to learn it. But I was prepared to learn it in the school of love. I was prepared to learn it in my physical relationships. I just learnt it, snogged my way through to first class degree. And I was prepared to do it in another way. I was prepared to do it in my home environment, in terms of like interiors. And I was prepared to do it, we were talking about earlier, I was prepared to do it with my hair. I've had so many haircuts, I'm like a chameleon. And that was like, I was not afraid of failing with my hair. I wasn't afraid of failing with my wardrobe. I wasn't afraid of failing with all those things. But in business, terrified of failing. So terrified of failing. In other things, terrified of failing. In the coaching world, early days, terrified of failing. Tonight, terrified of failing. But what does that do? You're not learning. You're not learning. Like the Tin Man and all of them, they didn't the Wizard of Oz couldn't give them it. They had to go on that journey to learn and explore. And I honestly believe that we are just here in this wonderful, wonderful dance. But if we feel like Dorothy, lost and abandoned, it's not going to feel, it's going to be awful. It's going to feel, you're just going to feel everything's against you and you'll be afraid. We were talking again, Ellie, about, the witch, the witch was Dorothy's bitch. The witch was her inner monster. It wasn't actually somebody else. It was her fear, her mistrust, her jealousy, all of that. And we all have that inside of us. So following your yellow brick road, you means you have to get to know all parts of you. Otherwise they'll jump out from the woods. They'll jump out and they'll be those batty monkeys, but they're you, She was lying there completely in her avatar. And I was thinking again about another film that explains this perfectly, which is there's a wonderful film where the person's put into a simulator and all of their worst nightmares come up. And it's trying to tap into their secrets. And if they can stay present and listen with every fibre of their being, they will realise that it's not even real. And they'll be able to step on to the next part of their life. So does that make sense? Can I check in with you that makes sense? So what we want to do tonight, we're going to spend time tapping into those core desires. And so that ability to start to learn to trust that what your heart wants in any area. So think of one area of your life where you have failed constantly. It seems to be that it was a disaster. You've either your financial life or your sex life or your business life or any part of your life. The area that you've learned the most. That is the area, that is where your strength lies. And if you can start to apply the same take the same principles of what you do in that life and start to apply them into other parts of your life, it starts to feel, it just would feel much better. So would you like to tap into these core desires? When I talk about core desires, does everyone know what I mean when I talk about core desires? Are you getting a sense of that? Yeah. So the core desires are, if I think about all of my life, I have been a daydreamer. I've watched lots and lots of movies, so many movies. I would be completely there in the dreamland, and I would be constantly sort of gaining experience of energetic level. I would get a feeling for things. And the core desires, if all I had to realize is that those core desires were the things that were always guiding me. And the great thing is about core desires, even if you're having a really shitty time and it feels really stuck, you're sending rockets out, and that life is going to come to you anyway. It just might take a bit longer. So if we can start to tap into our core desires, things just start speeding up, speeding up, speeding up. So suddenly, it's a bit like tapping into your core desires. It's like in Dorothy, she clicks 1, 2, 3, she's home. Every time. So at any point, your core desires are going to be changing, which is why we have to figure out what it is that we want. So if we go on a journey of your life, to tap into what it is that, and I think the best way I can describe it is, if you think about how everybody knows how they want to feel, you really know how you want to feel in your relationships with your partner, and you want to know how you want to feel in your business. And you know how you want it to feel when you're talking to people, and you know how you want it to feel in any situation. And that is all it is. It's like knowing that deep, deep feeling. But you have to imagine yourself into that situation and then receive the download. The thing that can hold it up is that we have these beliefs that we've attracted from our ancestors are so dominant that we don't believe we deserve what we want. So when I got involved in a business, which was called Ruby Slippers, I was wearing somebody else's ruby slippers because I didn't believe I deserved to have my own dream, my own vision. So I was trying to wear someone else's slippers and walk on their path to get to what I wanted, and I just didn't know what I really wanted because I just didn't believe I deserved it. So if you're finding it difficult to tap into that core desires, it's just really a sign that there's a belief that we have to question and a belief that we need to let go of. Does that make sense? So it's a bit like the person that I just didn't believe it was safe for me to walk away from a business situation because it just wasn't safe. I had so many experiences and carried those beliefs from young ages that it just was impossible for me. So I would freeze. And in every area of our life where we freeze, it's a bit like being in, the riptide of the sea. Anyone here riptide? The riptide that is in the ocean, anyone who doesn't understand it and is a bit terrified of water gets taken by a riptide and could very likely drown. Whereas you see a surfer coming along and they are looking for the riptide. They're diving into it. They are taking it because they know it's going to take them out to the big, big surf. Because they can see the whole perspective. They understand the whole game. And with our belief system, unless we understand what is going on, unless, like I did with my sexual life, unless I always felt safe and held, and it was my conduit to the divine. It was where I could feel something really magical was happening. And if we can start to think, well, if we can take that, and what is it we desire, and what did we desire then that made it so easy for us now? So you've got a little card each. On the front is a flower, and that's just a little, hopefully, that flower will resonate with a part of where you are right now, and that could be a message. But on the back, we are going to do this exploration into your core desires. And what I want to do, if you're up for it, I want to take you through a guided meditation, and I'm going to take you through the next few months of your life. And I'm going to ask you questions. And as you go into that, now some of you I know in this room already are very connected to your core desires. And the beauty of you being in this room is that you're going to go straight into them, and that is because this whole thing is about an energy. We are all feeding off the energy of each other, believing that we deserve what we want. And being in the room with people who are so connected to that core desire is just an extra zoop call. So I know if some of you are very clear on that, let's just revisit it and spend time in it. And so what's going to happen is you're going to, as I talk through with you, you're going to close your eyes during this. As I talk through this with you, words are going to come up. Words are just going to come up. And then at the end, we're going to write down these words. And then we're going to check in with your body and see which words are your three that will take you home. It's like your 3 clicks. Okay? So get yourself nice and comfortable. Before I ask, can everyone just check in with how they actually feel right now? And how did they feel when they agreed to come to this talk or bought the ticket to come to this talk? Did it? And you don't have to say it out loud, but just pay attention to whether that felt that you were in total integrity and it was a complete yes. Because if it, I'm assuming obviously it's a yes for you all, but just, in terms of if you think about any other things that you go to, that if it was just a yes for you, that is your yellow brick road essence, and that's the sort of energy we're going to tap into in this exercise. So, okay. So, when I do this exercise in the See Your Future workshops, we do an exercise before where we're tapping into that inner critic. So just even before you go, I just want to give you the message that you deserve to feel whatever you want to feel. You deserve for every scenario that pops into your mind to go in exactly the colour and dimension that you want it to go. You deserve to see your life in multicolour. You deserve to see so many different possibilities. So there is no limit to what you deserve. So allow yourself, take a deep breath, and to connect. Firstly, we're going to connect to the earth. Because in order to feel with every single fibre of your being, we're just going to make sure that you're fully, fully in your body. And I'm fully in mine too. So just imagine now that there's a lovely light coming in through your feet. Feel it in your toes, and it shoots down to every single toe, to the soles of your feet. It moves up your legs, around the back of your legs, and all the while breathing deeply in through your stomach. Let that light flood up into your tummy. Let it flood up to your heart, into your chest, your throat, your mouth, your nose, your eyes, your ears, your forehead. And feel a light from above as you tilt your head and allow yourself to receive the possibilities of your life from the universe above. Allow yourself to open to what might come. And allow this light to flood down the back of your head, the back of your spine, down to your waist, all the way down. And then feel a tingling in your fingertips as you get ready to receive this information. Allow the light to flood through each and every finger, up into your arms, up onto your shoulders, and down both sides of your back. And then we're fully present. And we're going to go on our journey, our dream adventure, where we allow ourselves to explore how we want things to feel in our home life. How do you want it to feel when you see your children, when they walk through the door? How do you want it to feel when they look at you, when you look at them? How do you want it to feel when you're with your partner? See yourself in their company. See yourself looking into their eyes. How do you want that to feel? Allow yourself to see yourself in whatever work environment you have. Whatever you do during the day, how do you want it to feel when you're doing your most difficult task? When you're doing the thing that feels hardest for you? How do you want to feel? See yourself with your family members, your extended family members. How do you want it to feel when you're in conversation with them? What is the message of what is possible for you, of how you could be in that environment? How it can be for you in that environment? What do you truly desire it to be like? What is the dream of all of that as you sit around the table this Christmas? What does it want to feel like? Smell like? Taste like? Allow colours to come. Sounds, words to come. Fill the room with all of it. Now see yourself being asked to get involved in a project. How do you want to feel when you say yes to a project? What is the guidance? What is there for you? What way are you able to be? What is your completely integral desire of your soul to be when you say yes to a project? See yourself in nature. How do you want it to be when you're walking in February wherever you live, either here or closer, further afield. Think of how it could be. Allow yourself to feel what is actually there for you already. See yourself in that environment. How do you want to feel in your body when you're doing exercise? What is possible for you to be able to say yes to and no to with your body? Think of your finances. How do you want it to feel when you pay for something? When you receive something? How do you want to feel when someone gives you a gift? How do you want it to feel when someone helps you? Allow yourself to receive the knowledge that your ancient self has already set in place and is already there. How do you want to be as a woman in 2017? How do you want your world to look for your children in 2017, 2018, 2019? What is this world that you would love to experience when you go traveling with your family? Allow yourself to feel what is there for you and focus only on the desire that is coming through your body right now. Now very gently, allow all of those words to merge and mingle. And allow yourself to recall them as you come back into this room. And when you open your eyes, I want you to very gently take your pens and write down all the words that have come to mind. And then we can talk some more. Okay. So we're all done? So if you've got more than 3 words down, which could well be the case, what I want you to do now is just close your eyes and say each of the word. Look at the word and put your hand on your heart and say the word and just tune into what's happening in your body, because your heart has the ability to communicate to you so powerfully. What you feel in your body is absolutely true. What you feel in your mind is a load of nonsense. So if you tap in and say the words and get clear on those 3 core desires. And then when you're done, you just want to come back and sit if you're done. I just love it. There's just some people who just dropped right into there. They're like, I'm so in my desire right now. I'm just staying. This was me at school. That was me at school the whole time. I'm staying here in my dream world. But it all came true. So it really, really comes true. If I think about every single time that I daydreamed as a kid, it has come true. There's not one thing that I didn't dream about that hasn't come true so far. And so if I just keep dreaming and keep tapping into these core desires. And if you think about Dorothy, she had her 3 core desires right there. Courage, love, and intelligence. She wanted to be smarter. She wanted to feel loved and be loving. And she wanted to be courageous. And they were right there, right inside of her. All she had to do was hang out with them and actually do whatever they had to do, whatever it took to help love, whatever it took to be more loving, what she had to do to be courageous. Having to go in and deal with their inner witch and pour water over her head, that took a lot of courage. And then she had it. So when we pray for God give me patience or God give me money, it's like God is not just going to give you that. God is going to give you the experience so that you can learn it and then know it in your body. And I think that's the message of the Yellow Brick Road. See, these movies are very, very deep indeed, these little early movies. So are you guys going to come back? Or are you all kind of very comfortable there on the floor? You're like, what? So in this part of the evening, I wanted to dive into the Q&A, and if your core, if this experience has brought up questions, that is where we want to lean into, because my whole purpose for you tonight is that you leave here just feeling that bit more certain about you and your yellow brick road, and knowing that actually you're completely safe. You are incredibly safe. Dorothy was never in danger. She was lying in bed, surrounded by people who loved her. And right now on this earth, on our earth journey, we are surrounded by so much love, and we are not in any danger. So we are free to desire what we want. Because certainly for me, I was afraid to desire what I wanted. It was like, if I desire it, something bad, if I'm really happy, something bad's going to happen. But it's just not true. It is not true. And I would rather lean into that and be willing to have it slammed in my face than to just stop expanding. I have one of my flowers here. If you feel your emotions and you feel the expansion, and I think often we shut down our emotions, we shut down our desires because we're afraid. We're afraid of that expansion. But we're hardwired to expand. And I know that following your own yellow brick road is hard. Mine has been very hard. The day that I stood and told my husband that I had snogged someone when we had been married was a very, very hard decision for me to make. But I'm made for hard stuff. And I felt that in my body so, so clearly. And that's why it was, that is, we are made for hard stuff. It's only our minds that will tell us that we're not made for it. So whatever challenges we've got coming ahead, we're made for it. So does everyone get some sense of their... Did everybody get some sense of of leaning in and dosing in and enjoying in that core desire? Does everyone feel good on that? Yeah? Okay, so now is the time to bring the questions, and let's play with the energy of what's there, because this would be really great to sort of to see if we want to play with any particular questions. Anyone feeling like they're ready to play? No?
You've led us to a really deep place, so I think everyone's just kind of emerging.
How does everyone feel about those desires? When you think of them and those words, how do they feel when you say them in your body? So actually what I need to do is explain how you can use them, and I apologise for that, I haven't explained how to use them, which is why there's no questions coming, because there's a big question there already. What do you do with these 3 words? Well, these are the 3 words that you're going to use for every single decision from here tonight onwards. Now you don't have to do that, but I would just encourage you to play with that. So any question that you get asked, would you look after my child tomorrow? Does it feel like any one of those 3 words? Yes. And if it doesn't, no, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to do that. Because if we want to be able to really enjoy our path of being here, we have to start putting our desires and our core desires in front of other people's core desires. I was wearing somebody else's shoes on their path, building their dream. It wasn't my dream. And we have to take charge and take responsibility for our own happiness. Nobody can make you happy. It's not their job, and it's not your job to make anybody else happy. But if you start following your desires and what you really want and how you want to play, everybody benefits. If I hadn't followed my desires, you wouldn't be sitting in this room. You wouldn't be coming to do yoga here. You wouldn't come and see any of these things, because I would have put somebody else's dream ahead of mine. Somebody else's dream ahead of mine. So those core desires are your armor. They're your 3 buddies on that path. They're the ones that you're going to dive in with, and they're going to take you in experiments. So if someone says, what if you're asked about going in a business situation, or any question whatsoever, does it match my core desires? Because if the answer is out of alignment with your core desires, you are in that riptide and you are struggling, and it feels horrible. When you follow your core desires, you're that surfer and you're through and you're out and you're in the big waves and you're having a ball. Does that make sense?
So Bernie, what would be an example of one of the core desires that brought you to here?
I stood on the beach in 2010 and I wanted to work by the sea. I wanted to be able to take holidays whenever I felt like it. I just wanted to hear my own voice with my own passion. I wanted it to feel purposeful. So I wanted it to be light, and I wanted it to be, I suppose I wanted it to be local, and I wanted it to be creative and colourful. And I wanted it to be about design, but I wanted it to be deep, about, the deeper relationships. Those are the desires. I want it deep, and I want it light, and I wanted it to be true. I wanted the truth. I've sent out a booty call the year before. I wanted the truth. I wanted to live in my truth. So anything, when I was in a business that wasn't, my body was reacting very badly. It was, I've almost signed a contract to go into a business situation, to become a partner in this business. I almost signed the contract. I didn't have the courage. I didn't have the courage to say no. Even though every fibre in my body was saying no, no, no. Now, I'm a huge believer that ultimately the universe, because I am the universe, my universe, she just stepped in and went, well, clearly, you've had enough time, we're just going to take you out of that. But I guess my core desire would have been, I want to be courageous. I want to be real. I want to be authentic. I want to be me. Everything that represents me, I want it to be that. And that led me to be able to have this. And nothing in those 6 years that has not been matched to my core desires has been able to happen. Because I've set such a high, I've set it out, I cannot live it out of my truth. And that feeling that I had when I was able to be completely whole and complete with my husband, that feeling then had to happen in all the other aspects of my life. That feeling of safe, free. Does this feel safe? No. And so, did it feel true? No. Did I have a good why? No. And so, if I started to figure this out, and so actually coming to be in this building, the reason we actually took this building was, does it feel light? And I came to see this building with the surveyors. In fact, this building has been speaking to me for about 8 years. We've been in North America 11 years. About 8 or 9 years ago, I saw this building. And it was activated from a core desire that I had when I was in Manchester in the early mid-90s. And I remember being, or not Manchester, it must have been somewhere, a little villagey place. And I remember looking at this office building that some designer was working in and thinking, wow, wouldn't it be amazing to have my own business, some sort of business, in a lovely, beautiful little town that just is like picture perfect. And I sowed that seed desire. I sent that rocket off to the universe. Now it would take many years, 15, 16, maybe 20 years for that to come true. But so this building had started to speak to me. I remember seeing it when I think my kids were in very early stages, so maybe Flynn was just about to go into nursery. And I saw it and I thought, God, there's an office in North Berwick. Wow, it's right by the beach. And wouldn't that be amazing to have some sort of creative business in there? It was a flash moment. And I thought nothing more of it. Then a job came up for the company that were working here. And I applied for it. And I didn't get it. But it was speaking to me. It was trying to just get my attention. And then the opportunity that I went into was all about really slippers and home enhancements and all of that sort of stuff. And it was about your feet. There was a clue. I was like following the trail, but I was so thinking that it was like it had to be that version. So when I finally came to see the building in 2012, and it just didn't feel right. By then I was completely paying attention to knowing that if my body is a no, I'm a no. But what surprised me, and this is what with the core desires, is when I actually finally did come to see it with the surveyor, and the price was right, the timing was right, I was ready. I came into this building and I got this really pain in my chest, and I was like, oh. And first thing amazingly, I've never been able to use this language before in business, and I heard these words come out of my mouth. I said, I've got a bit of a chest pain right now. Doesn't feel, I'm kind of 99%, remember that story I told you earlier? 99% sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk up the law with my dog, and I'll come back to you. So I go off with seaweed and I walk up the law, and I forget all about this. And I just get to the law and I sit there, and then I remember, oh yeah, Barefoot Sanctuary. And I look down, and there she is, she's waving, going, hello, remember me? And it was like, I just burst out laughing, because it was like, we are never in this decision alone. The message was, don't make this decision without checking in with me, without taking a step back, looking at it from a bigger perspective. That's all the core desires are trying to do, is get you to step back, allow yourself to pause, see it from a bigger perspective, and you cannot, well, it's not about failing then, but you're willing to play. And, I don't know if I'll be in this building I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I'm perfectly prepared for it to fail. And that is why I'm able to step into it, because it's like I'm trusting I've been guided to come. And that's the kind of difference that you apply of, I'm trusting that I'm playing this game. It's actually nothing to do with me, but it's a hell of a fun game. And I am held and I am safe. Does that answer your question in a very long way? So I have realised, I'm very aware that I've jumped from some stories to stories, but one of my desires tonight is to get clarity, because obviously I'm writing the book about all of this, and I want it to get clarity, and I know that watching this back is going to give me a lot of clarity, but my main intention for you is that you would get an essence of those core desires. So if that feels like you've got that feels good. Does anybody else have any other questions about core desires, or any other questions that I have, other stories that I'm sure I could tell you if you remind me?
Could you give us 3 words or something that would describe what it feels like to you when you're following your core desires? So what does it feel like in your body when you're following your core desire, when you feel something's right?
Yeah, well, they are changing. But right now my core desires are love. But I realise that, am I being loving enough? I was thinking it was all about me getting it. Missed that one completely. It was like, are you being loving to those around you? How can you be more loving to your teenage daughter that's driving you crazy? Who loves you so much and she's so amazing? How can you love your husband unconditionally and stop pushing him? What does that feel like to just love someone? What does it feel like to feel that you're enough? Is this enough? Have I had enough to eat? Have I had enough whatever? That's another one. And then excitement. Does this feel exciting? If I'm not excited about a business, particularly in the business one, that really helps me, or even anything, if I get an invitation, do I feel excited? If I don't, and I don't have to, I know, and this is the thing, we can know what we want, but we are very willing to lie to ourselves, because sometimes it's so glittery and it seems like the answer is outside of us, and we want it. You know that way when you buy a dress and you really want it to fit you, but it doesn't, and you're like denying it. It'll fit me next month. It will fit me next month. I'll put it into the wardrobe, and God, there's some point we have to call bullshit. It's not going to happen, and that's what it can be like when we step out of that. So for me, if it's not exciting, if it doesn't excite me, if it didn't excite me to stand up tonight, because last week we went away for half term, it felt like we were in a pile of poo. You know, it was like, everyone was like this, and nobody was speaking to everyone, and it was like nothing. It didn't feel exciting. It felt exciting to be on a boogie board. It felt exciting to go for a surf lesson, but it didn't feel exciting. I was not excited last week about doing this dog. I was far from excited. But I was perfectly willing to cancel if it did not feel right for me to stand up here tonight. I promised myself I would. I promised myself I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it if I was not feeling in love with my husband, in love with my daughter. If I had not started to just let her say enough. Let your child speak enough so that she can be heard, so she can get the train of her thoughts. And actually that's what she's letting me say enough so that I can get clarity as to what I want to do with this message. So those are my core desires. But they change and they get deeper and deeper, and that's why I do the core desire map, see your future. I'm committed to it every 4 months. I will be doing that work, and it's for me. So that I can remember, because our heads are so busy that we can forget what we really, really want. It's in the same way that you can go upstairs and say, what is it that I wanted? Because this thing has just taken over. The phone is taken over. But this is where we get our true answers. So that if every single human being was tapped into their core desires, the magic that would, in fact, well, I guess they all are. Ultimately, I believe everyone is, because ultimately the rockets go out, the opposite is created. I refuse to believe that this is not expanding more beautifully. I know that from my own experience, and if I can use my world as it, I have to see that it can happen for others. So these core desires are our gift to the world. If we follow our core desires, we are doing what we came here, what we promised we would do. We're playing our part. And that's why it's so important for us to tune into them and to honour them and to really, and it's hard, to sometimes follow through with them. It says, you've had enough chocolate. No, I haven't. You've had enough wine. No, I haven't. It's a commitment, it's a practice, and we're going to fail in it, and we're going to flop in it, but that's where we get to pick ourselves back up. And one of those core desires will always be the one that is the mother, nurturing, loving part of us. So, we get to pick ourselves up again and again and again and again. You all look so zen and chilled.
Bernie, I think a lot of people do get in the zone where they follow their heart and try and find their core desires. I think a lot of people are in autopilot and just doing what they think they're supposed to do to get through the day and get through their life. So
yeah, but what's happening behind the scenes, the core desire is there. Your soul is kind of going, it's like, for example, I thought that if I had a big house, detached house, fancy cars, all that, I would be happy. I thought if that guy loved me, I would be happy. I was in the autopilot, that's what I have to do. But my soul was going, that is not what we came here for. So ultimately, that's why people get made redundant. That's why their marriages break up. That's why people become ill, because it's going against their soul. So we were all on autopilot, but that's where I really deeply believe that everything that happens to us is happening for us. And if we can remember, even like last week, I was like, I was talking with Dave and we were talking about the kids and all of our relationships, and it was just, I had to hear, it's like Northern Irish people find it really hard to take a telling, or certainly I do, and I had to listen with every fibre of my body and hear what I needed to hear, that there was another shadow side of myself, the part of myself that shuts me down, that shuts other people down, that I had to start being kinder to and not have to be right. So, it's happening anyway, deep, deep down, because it's a bit like you think you're lost. Dorothy thought she was completely lost. She thought she was completely abandoned. People are on autopilot and they think they are so abandoned, and they're not. In my experience, I thought I was totally abandoned, and I just wasn't. But I had to feel abandoned so that I would surrender to my core desires finally. Does that make sense? It's like enough. I've had enough. I now will. And it took with me in every business situation in the past. It's taken for me to crash, to be so sort of agitated that I would go, right, that's it. Enough. I've had enough. And so it takes sometimes for that to snap us out of our autopilot. Because our autopilot is literally that we don't think we've got choices. We just don't think we've got choices. It's like you're born in a path, and that's the path you've got to take. And you don't question it, you're just on autopilot. But you do. And also I think every single human being hits that point at some stage or other. And actually a lot of people are actually completely awake. And they are, like I call it, completely awake in one aspect. And we will all be completely awake in one area of our lives. We will all be completely intuitive, we'll only be using our body as our guide in one area of our life. All we have to do is start to use that in all the others. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So how do you transfer it from one area to the others?
Well, that's the thing, we have to learn to do what we do. So for example, I had to learn to be able to say, like how, I remember going to look at a house and it was just like, nah, this is not for me. And I kind of said to the person, well, I just feel this is kind of it, I'm sorry, I just don't feel it. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't help it, I just go blah. And now they thought, my husband and her thought, I thought her house was blah. So it's kind of, we have to learn how to do it. That's why we have to pause and step back and find our own language, or our own way, or our own whatever. So, for example, that where I was, it's so intuitive for me to know if something's right in a physical relationship. I had to start trusting that in my business relationship. It's just like, it just doesn't feel right. But I wouldn't be sort of rushing in like a fool anymore. I would just be like, I'm going to see how I feel. I'm going to see how I feel. I'm going to see how I feel. And you use those 3 words. How do I want? Does this feel like that? Because those are the words that you're using in the area that's in flow. They're automatic in the area in flow. Does that make sense? The area that you are super professionally, it's so easy for you, you are following your core desires already. So it's just like asking yourself that question, how can I do it? And watching other people that do it. So if you've got a circle of friends, somebody will be completely intuitive in one of those areas. So it's like watching what they do. And I've been so privileged to be surrounded by people who have been total law of attraction experts without even knowing the word law of attraction. They have never heard of it, but they're doing it. Because they just are tuned in on a different level, because that is what they had to learn this time around. So it's just stepping back, giving yourself a deep breath, ask yourself those 3 questions, and then work from there. And apply the same thing that you do. If you think about what you're really, that area of flow that you'll be in, write out, what is it that I do there? How do I do it? And just approach it in the same way. Now, to give you an example, when I was working in Glasgow, I was a senior manager and I had this wall covering company. We built this brand, it was on the board, it was whatever. I was so intuitive in the world of business, so intuitive in selling. I've never had to be taught how to sell. I completely know how to do it. I know how to needs match. It's like I was born to do it. Put me on a hockey pitch, different story. And I remember one of the girls who I used to know, she would be on the hockey pitch and she'd be whacking the ball across at me, and I was terrified because I'm like, she's going to hate me because I can't get it. She ended up coming to work for me in the world of professional life. And I loved her because I got to know her off the field and realised that she was just doing her thing. And she couldn't believe how, she didn't look at me any differently because she actually thought she didn't care whether I wasn't good at that thing. But she was struggling with how to do business. She said, Bernie, you just do it so naturally. It's going to take me forever to learn all this. And I said, listen, think about what you do in the hockey pitch. When I see you in the hockey pitch, you are looking here and there. You use your strategy. I want you just to approach this, what you do here. I want you to do what you do in the hockey pitch in here. And she just went, I can do that. I can do that. So she just started to think like she was playing a game of hockey. And she was amazing. And she played it very differently to me, but she played hockey differently to me too. No surprise. So it was just allowing yourself to get curious about what is it that you do that in one area and start to implement it and just approach it in exactly the same way. Does that make sense? Yeah? Yeah? Does that make sense, Joe?
Mm-hmm. But you have to get yourself out of the way, don't you, in the process? So you can start to approach something in the same way that you would, but then your mind will kick in and say, yes, but. So then it's about tuning into that, isn't it?
But that's again,
and feeling what that feels like.
Yeah, because keep referring to the part of you, like Lizzie, gardening. You are in total intuition in your gardening. You feel your way around, you just do it. And so starting to implement every other thing like you would gardening, exactly the same way. And you just always think, now if I was in the garden, what would I do? What would I do first? What would I expect? Would I expect anything to happen today, or would I just be like, I'm not going to worry about that? I know when that's going to come. I know when that's going to flower. You just lean into the same intuition. You just remind yourself, what would I do if I was in the garden right now? Yeah? Because what you do in the garden is always going to be your if you look at your garden, your core desires are written all over it. How you want it to feel, how you want to feel when you're in it, everything, it's all right there. Does that make sense? So it's not
that my point was that it's so easy to be drowned out if we listen to our thinky mind. Then we lose
yeah.
that.
But so if you can think about where you don't use your thinky mind and just say to yourself, what would I do if I was in that? That's the key in. And that's what the gift that guy said to me years ago. Just those words of, this doesn't feel quite right. That was the clue for me to not have to, if I was making any decisions about here, I'm just going to wait and see how I feel. I'm going to see how I feel. I'm going to just feel my way through this. Give myself permission to feel my way through. And I'm just going to trust that I'll know. I'll just know if I think about anything from that kind of perspective of my former life where I found it very easy, and I just apply the same thing. And it's not going to happen overnight. That's why we've got a life, because we're just going to work and master it. But it just will start to feel more like a dance. And then also, we don't have to do it all anyway. There'll be some parts of our life that it's like we bring somebody else in, and watching them do it is just the same feeling as if you were doing something that was so joyous. So it's not about us all doing everything anyway. Yeah. And thank you very much. Thank you for holding the space and having the courage to tap in. And it's been a huge pleasure, as always.